Welcome to another video. Today we're going to be looking at Fusion, and specifically I want to show you kind of little tip or trick to help you, one, organize your scenarios a bit better, but two, something that's going to help make it a lot easier to troubleshoot. So if you're familiar with Fusion, if you've been around Fusion for a while, I'm sure you're aware that inevitably there's going to be times you're going to need to go in and fix something. So, in the best case, if it's a scenario you built and you know exactly, what's going on, that can be pretty straightforward and simple. But in other instances, it's going to be a scenario that someone else built, maybe a predecessor, someone who's in the business before you, that you took over their role, or maybe, um, a client of yours as well. But whatever the case, you may be coming in and seeing a scenario that was built by someone else, and now you're needing to go in there and figure out, okay, like what is going on. So I'm going to show you something that is going to help moving forward, make it easier to troubleshoot. And if you end up being the person who made this scenario and someone else is now trying to troubleshoot it, they're going to be very grateful if you do this one thing. So yeah, let's jump into it. I'm going to show you exactly what it is I'm talking about. So there's three items I want to discuss that's going to help with, again, the organization and also the troubleshooting side of things. So the very first um, is the naming of your scenarios. So if your organization does not have already in place some sort of naming convention for Fusion, I would highly recommend you start it. Okay. So however you want to do it, there's no, one size fits all solution. Um, but just make sure you come up with a system that is repeatable and is simple, right? So whether you're saying, okay, this is, maybe you want to include the date of when it was last updated. You want to include, what systems it's connected to, kind of a big picture of what it's doing, whether it's pushing data or pulling data. However you want to do it, but just, come up with a system that you can implement throughout all of Fusion with all of your scenarios. So that's going to be the first one. Come up with a good naming convention. The second one, this is something we've discussed before in previous videos, is going to be naming your modules. So that's the first step, something you should always do, is name your modules. So that way it's, as you're looking at it, you can say, "Hey, this says this says that." As you can see, this is an example of a scenario that we have not named the modules. So, it's just the standard name. This is a webhook. It's called a webhook. This is a data store. It's a router. So, we know what each module is on a high level, but we don't know what they're doing. I know this is Slack. I know it's creating a message, but that's it. So go in there and as you're building, rename the scenarios as you're going. That's going to make it, a lot easier for you to know what's going on and for anyone that's going to come behind you and look at it. So in order to do that, just in case you're not aware, if you right click, then you hit rename, you can name it. So this, for example, the webhook, and it's looking at a Slack message. So basically when a message comes into a specific channel, um, it would trigger this webhook. And then what's going to happen here is it gets triggered. It looks at it based on certain criteria. It's going to go up. It's going to create kind of a key and give some specific responses based on a flow. But anyways, if you want, I can get into that in a different video, exactly how that works. Okay, so the first one, just to recap, was the naming of the scenario. The second one was the naming of the modules. Now, this third one is the big one. This is the one that I think is more of the game changer. And more than anything, this is the one that I think is widely overlooked. It amazes me how useful this is, and yet at the same time, how few people actually take advantage of it. And so, what that is notes. So if I click here, right now there's no notes, right? No notes have been found. Right click on a module to get started. So what this means is you can actually go in and add a note, kind of like a little sticky note, attached to every single module. So for example, if I go, let's look at this one. It's creating, um, a pattern and an output. It's a switch. If I just, if you had no idea what this was doing, you came in here, you looked at this, you'd be like, what is going on? So what I can do is I right click again and I hit add note. And then you can move this around. I'm going to go here and I'm going to say, um, something like, this module is taking the data from module 19, or the one before it, and creating a pattern for the response that will be sent via Slack. The pattern is used for filtering um, after the router 23. And I'll save that. Okay, so now I'm like, oh, so this is getting information from module 19. It's creating a pattern, and then it's going to use that pattern for filtering after module 23. So we know step 0, 1, 2. If I look in here, we have 0, 1, 2. Um, and so you can see now that I've added this note, it shows you, okay, what is this module doing? And what I would recommend is as you're building, just the same as you're adding the name, you're renaming each module, add a note with that module. And especially when you do it, don't just include, okay, what is this specific module doing, but how does this module interact with other modules or with other tools, right? How does this affect, like what's affecting this, right? I know this is affected by module 19, it's affecting, then it's going to affect these. So if I make a change here, then I know I need to double check, okay, is the data going to be right here still to push it across? And if I change here, is it going to mess anything up here, right? And you can see, things are connected. And then on the other side, it's like if this module, was pushing something to Workfront or pulling from Workfront or interacting with Workfront in some way, it's saying, okay, this module is doing X, right? Not only is it, accomplishing this, but this is going to be affecting Workfront in this way. By doing that, it makes it so much easier when you're needing to go through and figure out, okay, what is this scenario doing? Where do I need to potentially make a change or make a fix? And just figuring out what's going on. If you have these notes, it makes it so much simpler and quicker. And trust me, it might be a bit of a pain the first time if you're the one that's having to go through and add all these notes. But you'll thank yourself next time you have to go through that scenario and you have all the notes and you're like, oh, this is what's going on. And anyone that comes after you will be extra grateful because it's going to save them a lot of time trying to figure out, what is that scenario trying to do. So those are three kind of tips and recommendations. The last one, again, using the notes is something that I personally feel like is overlooked a lot of times. It surprises me how few people, in my experience, actually use that feature. So hopefully you found that helpful. Hopefully you found that useful. I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts with all this, but especially with that note feature. Is that something that you use currently? Is that something that you're familiar with? Or is that something that maybe is new to you and now you're thinking, oh yeah, this is useful. I'm going to start using that. So let me know. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. My information is going to be in the description of the video. Um, and yeah, I'll see you all on the next video.